This is stuff you like, and I saw Avengers Infinity War in the cinema recently, and boy, that was a thing that happened. Hello Deathly Hallows Part 1. But it made me remember that I hadn't actually watched Thor Ragnarok yet, and also that I got it on DVD for my birthday, so here we are. Bless you, Thor Ragnarok. I love you so much. I really liked Thor, and so I was kind of disappointed with the Dark World. Not because it was the worst thing ever, just because it didn't have the feeling that I associate with Thor. As I said in my original review, it made fun of the pain of the characters, and that just seems kind of off to me. I think Thor Ragnarok balances its tone much better and returns more successfully to the theme of family. Not found family, which is more of a superhero movie staple, but, you know, your legal blood adopted family and all their fears and failings and how you can still love them anyway. Right, the plot of Thor Ragnarok goeth thusly. Thor has an older sister, Hela, surprise, who is goddess of death and wants to rule Asgard. The only thing that's held her back is Odin, and he dies, and oh dear. While fighting her, Thor and Loki get sent to Jeff Goldblum world, where Thor has to fight in an arena against, oh hey, the Hulk, who has been here for 2 years, and isn't Bruce, and oh dear. Also there's an alcoholic Valkyrie, and Loki tries to betray everyone, so far so standard. Heimdall leads the survivors of Asgard who need to get off the planet. Thor loses an eye fighting his sister. Eventually they cause Ragnarok on purpose and kill Hela. They get the Asgardians off the planet with the help of Loki. Asgard is destroyed. The end. To be continued in Infinity War, where we start with the Asgardians on their ship. Oh dear. Right, but before we get into brother-related shenanigans, there is one thing that I just want to say. Bruce Banner, what kind of agent has 7 PhDs? 7? Really? 7? Are you serious? 7? Bruce, my darling, my heart, my own, you get 1 PhD, and then you engage in some postdoctoral research. Postdoctoral, that's why they call it that. You get paid more and everything. And in your postdoctoral research, you can pivot into whatever field seems kind of related or necessary regardless of the topic of your PhD. And then maybe you can get a permanent research or teaching job that isn't just a doctoral stipend, and you don't have 7 PhDs, you have a stable income. No wonder you're so angry, man. Look, maybe you study for 2 PhDs because the first one was in, I don't know, psychology, and the second one was in nuclear physics and it didn't really translate. But 7? I'm just going to make the executive decision that at least 5 of Bruce's PhDs are honorary, just for my own sanity. Anyway, back on topic. The amount of times this is a family thing gets said in the movie, particularly to Thor as people tell him they aren't going to help him with his sister, is significant. Thor was a coming-of-age story about an arrogant man-child who wanted to rule but was unworthy of it. Thor: The Dark World is about a man who would be fit to rule deciding that the crown is not worth the cost.
I'd rather be a good man than a great king.
And Thor Ragnarok is about a man having to rule regardless of personal feelings, and learning that you can love someone without necessarily trusting them. After all, he already knew you can love someone even when they're a bad person. And the scene in which this is made explicit is one of my favourite in the movie, and that is quite an accomplishment because Thor Ragnarok is great. I love it. Seriously, I have never laughed so hard at a Marvel movie, and they are all pretty funny. But Stephen Strange, Korg, the Grandmaster, man, I love it. But to the point. Thor loves Loki, Loki loves Thor, Odin loves both of them. That doesn't make Thor or Loki or Odin, particularly those last two, good at being brothers or fathers or any of that. Odin was, after all, a great leader, maybe, but not such a good parent. His solution to problems is to cover them up and pretend that they don't exist, and that is always going to come back and bite you. But what makes this film satisfying is that he admits it. He says that he failed his sons. He failed his daughter too, to be fair. Although possibly being goddess of death is a mitigating factor. Ragnarok is a story about how Thor could be a great king, and not just because he's a good and selfless person, but also because he can adapt to changing circumstances. Unlike Loki at the beginning of the film, he is willing to stand against Asgard's enemies. Unlike Hela, he is willing to give up his home planet and his power if that means his people will be safe. Unlike Odin, grief doesn't make him vengeful. It makes him angry and petty, but not for long. And unlike the Thor of previous films, he can be practical about his family. He loves his brother so, so much, and Loki loves him, but seems incapable at this point of not being a Weasley little twerp. At least, he can't sustain not being a Weasley little twerp for very long. But instead of berating him for this, Thor accepts it. The scene in the lift and the subsequent revelation that the back-patting was also planting an obedience chip tells you everything you need to know about Thor now. He's kind and he's encouraging and he's thoughtful.
I found, this in the armory.
Ugh, that's my boy. But He's not stupid. Slapstick, yes, but he's not dumb. He knows his brother. And he still loves him enough to give him a truly deeply heartfelt speech about how he could be more than just a trickster, whilst not counting on that actually working. Enough to want to leave him on a planet that would suit him instead of involving him in a probably deadly fight with his big sister. Enough to mourn for him when he was gone. Ugh, this scene. Their whole relationship in this movie is just brilliant, but this scene, it's a welcome pause in the middle of the action, and it makes you feel for the characters without necessarily condoning them. Loki. Because Thor is exactly right, Loki is bad at change. For a character who thrives on the chaotic, on a twisting, interweaving web of treachery and deceit and shifting alliances, Loki is really bad at acknowledging that people can change. Specifically, that they can change for the better. Maybe because he's resisting the idea of doing it himself so hard. But Thor, he accepts that he cannot change his brother, but he still encourages Loki to change. And he doesn't leave out the possibility of redemption. Thor can love his brother without believing that his brother has his best interests at heart. And even if Loki refuses to change, that doesn't stop Thor from changing how he reacts. The best bits of The Dark World were the bits where you could feel the sibling connection. And that is why this is my favourite part of what is overall a really good, fun movie. Thor Ragnarok manages to contain the death of Odin and the destruction of Asgard, and it's still fun. It's still hopeful. It's still upbeat. And then Infinity War happens and everything is miserable. But what can you do? Thanks for watching this episode, and thank you as always to my patrons. Bear in mind that I have got a new job. Hooray! And we are operating on a reduced schedule because of that, so if you want to be notified as soon as I put up a new episode, then you should hit the bell. Or subscribe if you haven't done that already. And also hit the bell. Yep, I think that's everything. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.